Hello, my name is Lisa Shea, and I will be reading to you from Aspen Allegations. Hello. Hello, my name is Lisa Shea, and I will be reading to you from Aspen Allegations. Chapter 1. What is life? It is the flash of a firefly in the night. It is the breath of a buffalo in the wintertime. It is the little shadow which runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. Crowfoot, Blackfoot warrior. The woods were lovely, dark and deep. My footfalls on the thick layer of tawny oak leaves made that distinctive crisp crunch sound that seemed unique in all of nature. The clouds above were soft gray, cottony, a welcome relief from the torrents of Hurricane Sandy which had deluged the East Coast 2 days earlier. Sutton had been lucky. Plum Island, Massachusetts, a mere 90 minutes northeast, had been nearly blown away by 80-mile-an-hour winds. Here we had seen only a few downed trees, Whitens Pond once again rising over its banks, and the scattering of power outages which seemed to accompany every weather event. I breathed in a lungful of the rich autumn air, tanged with moss, turkey-tail mushroom, and the redolent muskiness of settling vegetation. Nearly all of the deciduous trees had released their weight for the year, helped along in no small part by the gale-force winds of Tuesday. That left only the pine with its greenery of 5-needled bursts, and the delicate golden sprawls of witch hazel blossoms scattered along the path. It was nice to be outdoors. 2 days of being cooped up in my house/home office had left me eager to stretch my legs. The Sutton Forest was far quieter than Purgatory Chasm this time of year, in no small part because hunting season had begun a few weeks earlier. The bow and arrow set were out stalking the white-tailed deer, and they had just been joined by those eager for coyote, weasel, and fox. I wore a bright orange sarong draped over my jacket in deference to my desire to make it through the day unperforated. A golden shaft of sunlight streamed across the path, and I smiled at where it highlighted a scattering of what appeared to be small, dusty, russet pumpkins. I stooped to pick one up, nudging its segments apart with a thumbnail. A smooth nut stood out within its center. A hickory, perhaps? I would have to look that up later when I returned home. I had finally indulged myself with a smartphone a few years ago when I turned 40, and while I'd like to carry it for safety reasons, I preferred to leave it untouched when breathing in the delights of a beautiful day. The woods were quiet, and I liked them this way. The Sutton Forest network stretched across the middle of the 8-mile square town, but it seemed that few of the 10,000 residents knew of this beautiful wilderness. In comparison, Purgatory Chasm, a short mile away, was usually bustling with a multifaceted selection of humanity. Rowdy teenage boys, not yet convinced of their invincibility, dared each other to get closer to the edge of the 80-foot drop into the crevasse. Cautious parents would climb along its boulder-strewn base, holding the hands of their younger children. Retiree birders would stroll Charlie's loop around its perimeter, ever alert for a glimpse of a scarlet tanager. Purgatory Chasm had an exhibit-filled ranger station, a covered gazebo for picnicking, and a playground carefully floored with shock-absorbing rubber. Here, though, there was barely a wood signboard to give one an idea of the lay of the land. The few reservoirs deep in the forest were marked, as well as where the forest proper overlapped with the Whitensville Water Company property. That was it. Once you headed in here, you were on your own. The maze of twisty little passages, all different, were as challenging to navigate as that classic adventure game where you would be eaten by a grue once your lantern ran out of oil. A person new to the trails would be foolhardy to head in without a GPS, perhaps a pocket full of breadcrumbs. In the full warmth of summer, I would be alert to spot a few American toads, a scattering of dragonflies, and an attentive swarm of mosquitoes. This first day of November was both better and worse. The mosquitoes had long since departed, but along with them they had taken the amphibians and fluttering creatures that I usually delighted on in my walks. I had been rambling for a full hour now, and the most I had heard was the plaintive onk-onk cry of a nuthatch. Maybe it, too, was wondering where the tasty smaller morsels had gone off to. Still, with the trees now bare of their leafy cover, there was much to see. The woods were usually dense with foliage, making it hard to peer even a short distance into their depths. Now it was as if a bride had removed her veil and her beauty had been revealed. The edges of a ridge against the gray-blue sky showed a delicate tracery of granite amongst the darker stone. A stand of elderly oaks was stunning, the deep creases of the sand-brown bark rivaling the wise furrows in an aged grandfather's brow. I came around a corner and stopped in surprise. A staggeringly tall oak had apparently succumbed to the storm's fury and had fallen diagonally across the path. A thick vine traced its way along the length of the tree, adding a beautiful spiraling pattern to the bark. The tree's crown stretched far into the brush on the left, but on the right the roots had been ripped up and a way was clear around them. I moved off the trail to circumvent this interesting new obstacle in life, eyeing the tree. When I'd parked at the trailhead, there had been 2 trucks tucked along the roadside. One had been a crimson pickup truck with no shotgun racks or other indications of hunting, at least that I could see. Hopefully the owner was just out for a walk like I was. The other vehicle had been a white F-150, clearly marked as belonging to the Department of Conservation. If the ranger was in here somewhere, hopefully he'd spotted the tree and was making plans to clear the trail. If I hadn't run into him by the time I emerged, I'd leave him a note on his windshield. My foot caught on a hidden root and I stumbled, catching myself against the rough bark of a mature oak. I shook my head, brushing my long auburn hair back from my eyes. The forest floor was coated with perhaps 2 inches of oak leaves in tan, chocolate, fawn, and every other shade of brown I could imagine. My usual hunt for mushrooms had been stymied by the dense natural carpet, and I knew better than to daydream while walking through this hazard. My eyes moved up, and then stopped in surprise. The elderly man lay on his back as if he had decided to take a midday nap during his stroll. His arms were spread, his head relaxing to one side. But his eyes were wide open, staring unfocused at the sky, long past seeing anything. The crimson blossom at his chest was a counterpoint to the dark green jacket he wore. The blood was congealed, the edges dry. It's from Aspen Allegations. My name is Lisa Shea. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a delightful day.